6:40. Why don't we get started? I can read all the pre-meeting notifications and we can get going. Good morning, everyone. I'm Eric Barassa with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. David Moeller is not able to make the meeting, so I'll be chairing today's meeting. I'm going to read the notice of non-discrimination. You're invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender, identity or expression, veteran status, or background. And this is our accessibility statement. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: web content accessibility guidelines 2.1 level AA standards and revised section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodation in order to participate fully in this meeting, or if you have any technical difficulties, please contact Sam Taylor, our MPO staff, at stayyor@ctps.org, or you can call him at 857-702-3702, or you can use the chat box. Here are the meeting guidelines. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. After the roll call, board members may mute and unmute themselves. Always remain muted unless actively speaking. To participate in the discussion, please use the raised hand function. You can find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raised hand button at the bottom, or you can use the reactions button in the toolbar, and the chair will then call on participants. And if you're on the phone, you can use the *9 feature to raise your hand. So let's start with introductions, and I'm going to pass it off to Dave Hong.
Thank you. I would call MassDOT seat 1, MassDOT seat 2.
John Bouchard, representing Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver, present.
Thank you. MassDOT Highway Division. Do we have MassDOT Highway Division?
John Romano here, Mass Highway. Sorry.
Thank you. MBTA.
Sandy Johnson, representing General Manager Phil Lang in the MBTA. Good morning.
Good morning. Massport. MAPC.
Eric Barassa with MAPC.
MBTA Advisory Board. Do we have Advisory Council?
Leonard Diggins, the Advisory Council here.
Thank you. City of Boston BTD.
Boston.
Thank you. City of Boston BPDA.
Jim Fitzgerald with BPDA, representing Mayor Wu, City of Boston.
At-large City of Everett. Do we have the City of Everett? At-large City of Newton.
Ned Codd, City of Newton.
Thank you. At-large Town of Arlington.
Good morning, Sarah Suarez, representing Arlington.
Thank you. At-large Town of Brookline.
Good morning, Erin Cheat, representing Chairperson Bernard Green for the Town of Brookline.
Good morning. Interquarter Committee, City of Somerville.
Good morning, Tom Bent, City of Somerville, representing Mayor Katiana Ballantyne in the Intercore.
Good morning. Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton.
Good morning, Kristen Guichard, representing Acton Select Board Chair Jim Snyder Grant for the Magic Subregion.
Good morning. Metro West Regional Collaborative, City of Framingham.
Eric Johnson, representing City of Framingham Metro West Collaborative.
Thank you. North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly.
Darlene Nguyen, representing the North Shore Task Force and Mayor Cahill.
Thank you. May I call on MassDOT 1, seat 1 again?
Yes, Derek Cravat here for MassDOT seat 1. Apologies for missing that initially. Thank you.
Good morning, Derek, and thank you. North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington. Next is South Shore Coalition, Town of Hull. Just going to go back to the City of Everett.
Good morning, Jay Monty, representing Mayor DeMaria and the City of Everett.
Good morning. Next is Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Rentham.
Hello, Rachel Benson, representing Joe Botash, Chair of Rentham Select Board.
Good morning. Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood.
Steve Olenoff, representing the Trick Subregion, Town of Norwood.
Thank you. Do we have Federal Highway Administration present? Next is Federal Transit Administration. Have I missed anyone on this roll call?
Sarah Lee from Massport is here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? With that, I will turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Great, thank you, everyone. And there is no chair's report today, so I will pass it to our executive director, Tegan Type.
Thanks, Eric. Hello, everyone. Really great to see you. I have two components of my chair's report today, or my executive director's report today, not taking over as chair. The first, I wanted to provide some updates on discretionary grant application activities that we're engaged in with some deadlines coming up. And the second is just to give you the overview of the agenda for today. At a high level, I wanted to touch on these grant activities. We haven't submitted any of these grants yet, and the applications, and they do not themselves require the sort of tacit board approval as it did when we submitted the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application, where we needed the board to make a statement and sort of approve the application itself. But I thought it might be useful just to keep you informed as we're identifying ways to match MPO priorities and goals to some of these opportunities to get additional funding to work towards those goals. So I just wanted to highlight three that are due in the coming days and weeks that we are putting together. As a caveat, we are quite sure that we are close to being able to successfully submit the first two, and the third is a little bit more of a work in progress. So for the first one, we are looking to submit for the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Action Plan grant. It's funded through the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. And for that grant opportunity, we're crafting a proposal to identify the heat risk that people walking and biking are exposed to as they travel throughout the region. And to do that, we're looking at combining certain data, urban microclimate data, as well as high resolution mobility data. So by looking at those data and being able to identify both high-risk communities and high priority pedestrian and bicycle network segments, we'll be able to then identify opportunities to work with one or two municipal partners and advocates in a region to plan, design, and implement a pilot geared towards mitigating that risk. Examples of that could be things like creating cool corridors for walking and biking, using more urban greenery, reflective paint, and potentially things like shaded shelters around public transit and walking areas. So that's just a taste of what we're putting together for that grant. It is due April 24th. And the scale of this is estimated to be about $1 million, with the CTPS, the MPO staff portion of that, to be perhaps a little less than half of that. This first grant does have a match that we haven't fully resolved yet, but there is an opportunity to use some in-kind time as part of that match. The second grant that we are working hard on right now is the MATI grant. It's the Mobility, Access, and Transportation Insecurity grant. This one's managed by the University of Minnesota Center for Transportation Studies, and it's funded by the FTA. And the idea for this grant is to help identify and address contributing factors leading to transportation insecurity. So the opportunity in this grant is it's a phase 1 where we would design a pilot. You design the pilot, not implement it. That would look at using affordable community electric vehicle car sharing as a way to enhance the access to a multimodal transportation system that would be transit centric. And it would be focused on, of course, providing that enhanced access for the transportation insecure residents. So for this grant opportunity, we're looking to partner with MAPC, with Good to Go, which is an EV car share company, with municipalities and with advocates to understand what the unmet mobility needs of affordable housing residents would be. And we're looking at the areas of Revere, Chelsea, and Everett. And then if we are successful in getting this grant and designing a good pilot, then we might be considered for the phase 2 of the grant funding to implement the pilot. So that application is due April 30th. And the scale of this is smaller as it is a design for a pilot. It would probably be around 150K, with CTPS's portion being about half of that. And then lastly, the one that is still coming up soon, but more in the works, and we're looking to, you really need to do some more kind of coordination around this one, but it's an exciting opportunity. It's the Prioritization Process Pilot Program, and it's funded through Federal Highway Administration, the DOT, to provide funding to develop and implement a more publicly accessible, transparent prioritization process for the ranking and selection of projects for funding for inclusion in the short range and long range transportation plans. So for this, we're designing an application where we would look at our current project evaluation and prioritization processes for the TIP and the long range plan. And we look for ways to enhance that. We look for doing that with an emphasis on data-driven evaluations, focusing on equity, environmental justice, access to opportunities, safety, climate change, and sustainability. But particularly in order to make the process more transparent, inclusive, et cetera, we would really focus on a process that would engage stakeholders from the start throughout the evaluation and implementation and validation of criteria, and then continuing on to ensure that the criteria are updated and remain transparent, accessible to stakeholders. So that is a public engagement sort of expansion and creativity around these criteria. And the due date for this, if we are able to crystallize it into a strong grant application, would be May 1st. So if you have any questions about any of these grant application activities, you can always feel free to ask them now. Also, Rebecca Morgan, our Director of Projects and Partnerships, is here, and she is also a great resource to point you towards getting more information on those grants. Let me know, Mr. Chair, if you want me to pause now or finish through the agenda items.
Why don't we pause and take questions on this? I see Len has his hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Tegan. Excellent, especially that second one, the Maddie one. Oh my goodness, one of those gem of a grant proposal. I really hope we get it. But the P4, who's the grantor for that one?
So that is the P4. Bring it up. That's Federal Highway Administration. And actually, Rebecca, can I ask you also to just sort of raise your hand or be ready to unmute to answer questions? Make sure she's available too. Yeah, there she is. Okay, great. Keep going.
That was it for me. That's it. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. No. Your reports often have gems in them, in this one particularly so thank you.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Jen Rao?
Yeah, also very excited about what the sounds of all three of these. I'm happy to help out in any way when it comes to that. My question was just you mentioned for the, I think, first one that the CTPS portion would be around 50%, but I didn't catch the who you'd be partnering with. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, so this one, as well as the first and second both involve partnerships with other municipalities, as well as advocates and stakeholders to look at implementing pilots as well. And so there would be some partnership and use of those funds to pilot those, then that wouldn't be just CTPS's time. That would actually go towards municipalities or other payment for some of those materials. So Rebecca, I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I can just add that the focus of CTPS is really around this regional data set and to be able to identify where those high risk locations are. And then through that process, we'll identify which communities would be candidates for these pilot implementations. We're also partnering with a couple of advocates that we're planning on doing walkability and bikeability assessments based on those high risk locations. And there'll be a process for identifying those communities, but we have been in conversation with a number of municipalities to ensure that from a capacity perspective, that this would be a possibility. And so we have a few communities that we've already spoken to, including Chelsea, Revere, and Everett, also Framingham and Lynn. But we're very open to what those communities actually are, and it'll just really be based on the data and the walkability and bikeability assessments that would be done as part of kind of the first phase of the work.
Great. Any other questions for Tegan on these 3 grant programs? Okay, not seeing any. I'll pass it back to Tegan. You can keep going with the executive director's report.
Thanks, Eric. And I'll just add that as we get closer to submitting these, like everybody going through these grant opportunities, while we don't need, full MPO board written support, in terms of pursuing these, we may be reaching out to some of our partner agencies to see if you want to work with us to submit formal letters of support. So keep an eye out for us, looking out to y'all if you are interested and able to provide those support letters. Next slide, please. Okay. So today's agenda, just trying to keep everything in line and in order in everyone's minds here, because I know it's been a rapid fire of many weeks of meetings and talking about different aspects and parts of the TIP. And we're doing things in a little bit of a different order today. So I just wanted to orient you. After the usual opportunity for public comments, of course, committee reports, advisory council reports, and then the approval of meeting minutes, before the additional action items, usually we do action items first, we'll have a presentation. So if you'll recall, last meeting, we had Mass DOT, MBTA, Cape Ann Transportation Authority, and Metro West Transportation Authority present on their capital development process, including lists of projects that would be incorporated or representative projects that would be incorporated into the 25 to 29 TIP. And that's the TIP that you'll be voting on today. And MassDOT's list was posted last week and has been updated and will be presented to you today in advance of asking you to release the entire TIP document for public comment. So then that's the first action item. It's releasing the 25 to 29 TIP for public comment. That includes the target funding scenario that you all go through the prioritization process and approved a few weeks ago, as well as the aforementioned Mass DOT, MBTA, and then the other RTAs, prioritization and selected projects within that TIP. Following that, we will also have an action item related to an amendment to the UPWP, which is the MPO's annual work plan. This amendment represents kind of a typical annual adjustment that we ask you all to consider, whereas we near the last quarter of the federal fiscal year and we go through and we update and look at spending and think about the remaining budgets for various line items in the UPWP, we ask to sort of update and shift around where we've spent less or more in certain areas based on a whole variety of reasons, which we're happy to discuss and get into if you'd like. The net impact on the budget is always 0 or neutral. It just allows us to be more flexible in terms of how we use our time and resources through the end of the year. And then the last action item for you to consider will be around the topic of Regional Transit Authority, particularly Metro West and CADA representation on this board. David Hong on staff will present to you the MPO Update Committee's recommendations, and then you are welcome to discuss and vote if you feel ready on that topic. It would not be effective immediately, but it is something that we feel is worth bringing to the board now before the full MOU update is brought to the board later on this calendar year. And then following, next slide, those action items. We will have 2 additional presentations and discussions. They will be very interesting though, I promise. The first is a completed discrete study, the kind of independently funded studies with an independent deliverable outside of our programmatic work, called Sustainability and Decarbonization in the Freight and Logistics Sector in the North Suffolk area. Staff have done a really nice job making this a really cool and compelling presentation. And so I look forward to having a discussion with you all. And then that will be followed by a presentation by our very own liaison, Derek Cravat, about Beyond Mobility, which is MassDOT's 2050 transportation plan, which is coordinated with our own long-range planning, as well as many other initiatives going on in this state. Next slide, please. So that is today. After this, we will have a break and we will have the next meeting in 2 weeks is when it is scheduled. We're still developing the agenda for that. So expect the next meeting to be virtual on May 2nd at 10 a.m. And that is it, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions for Tegan? Okay, not seeing any. Let's go to public comments. Are there any public comments today? I see Brad Rossens raised his hand.
Thank you, Chair. Sound check. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate the opportunity to provide public comment, Chair. Once again, I really want to applaud our hardworking MPO staff, our state agency partners, our municipal project proponents who have worked so hard through this TIP cycle. Chair, I would remind the board and staff that we have heard from numerous municipalities during the TIP cycle important questions about project readiness, about the project design pilots that we as a board have endorsed in order to address project pipeline and cash flow issues that have really haunted our TIP development these last couple of year cycles. I've also received some questions offline directly from municipalities who really want to learn more about these processes. This is important to Somerville because we represent the inner core on this board. This has been a passion project of Tom and of myself for many years now. Now, I also want to really spotlight for the board and for staff how great it was to receive technical presentations from agency partner staff last week, MBTA with Lindsay Heffernan, Mass DOT with Michelle Scott. They were breaths of fresh air for all of us who are curious about project development, the relationship between state agency capital projects and the MPO's capital planning efforts. And so I'd ask board members to continue to pay close attention to these issues, take advantage of the great momentum that we have built through the leadership of Jen Rowe and the Tipper Committee volunteers, and really make sure that we are doing the hard work in the interval between this TIP and next TIP. That means getting the groups back together in the summertime and the fall, Chair, asking for technical guidance from the deep knowledge and expertise of our state agency partners at Mass DOT and MBTA. So again, thanks for everybody's hard work, and please don't just put MPO business on the shelf for the next 6 or 9 months. We've got to continue doing the work incrementally through the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad, for those comments. I think those are all really spot on, and look forward to discussing more of some of those things with the group. And like you said, checking in on TIP process issues over the summer and into the fall. Thank you. I see Aleda Leza.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk to you, which is something my town never does. I come to you with two issues. One is that because I am an abutter to the Belmont Community Path. I've been dealing with this for 6 years. We have been consistently muzzled, and this town evades laws and rules as much as it can. And when it's forced into it, it will stick to the letter of the law and not to the spirit of the law. So I would recommend that you put in place some kind of a mechanism so that when people like me are trying to get information and are being actively blocked and muzzled, they can be helped. It has been very difficult to find my way through this project, to understand the whole process of the design. And it took me about 2 years to find out about my ability to access the MPO. And so it's been very, very exhausting. It's like cracking stones with my teeth. I'm exhausted, to be honest. And the other thing that, so please do something for, you will find rogue towns like this, because I hear that it's very common for towns to do projects just because of money and politics. And that seems to apply to this town. And so we abutters have been basically like roadkill in this process. The other thing is precisely because of what seems to be really behind this project. So far, MBTA recommendations for safety have been ignored for political purposes, just to satisfy certain segments. Right now, in order to be able to come to you proudly waving that they have had a public hearing. What I thought it was a mandatory review of a bridge worksheet that is an underpass that goes under the commuter rail was waived to be able to accelerate the scheduling of the public hearing. I live next to the commuter rail. We have about 37 trains that go by. I live basically about maybe at the most 70 feet from the rails. I want safety above all. One of these monsters get off the rails is going to wipe my house. It's going to wipe my neighbor's house across the street, most likely. So I am very alarmed to see how politics and pressures can come about to do things about waiving reviews of engineering plans or having engineering plans made to accommodate political purposes and not safety for the public. And so I'm concerned that as this proceeds, more of this waiving or ignoring will go on. So I beseech you, please, to make sure that everything is done correctly and doesn't get ignored. Because, like I said, we abutters are getting ignored here. So, anyways, and I can give you multiple examples of things that have happened. And by the way, right now they know, for example, that they want to kill our trees. There's an MBTA program for safety, which is to use herbicide program twice a year. They know about it, and yet they're trying to dangle the idea of landscaping. So kill the trees, put in landscaping, even if they know that the herbicide program will kill that landscaping. And they dangle that before the abutters to try to convince them that this is a good idea. So we're going to be left with bare ground, basically. So anyways, that's one of the many ways that people are deceived. And this is just not going well. Sorry for taking maybe too much time, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity. Like I said, it's so refreshing to talk when this town does the best it can to shut us up. Have a good day, and thank you again, and thank you for being so receptive.
Absolutely. And as always, appreciate public comment into our process. Feel free to put anything in writing and submit it as well to MPO staff. And I'm sure one of the staff can follow up with you with the right email and address to be able to do that. So thank you.
If I may say so, I have written a letter. I'm afraid it's going to be on the long side, maybe. But this is so important to us, so I apologize if it's maybe like 3 pages. So thank you for saying that.
No problem. Let me pass it to John Bouchard.
Thank you, Eric. Ms. Laza, I'm John Bouchard. I'm Deputy Chief Engineer for Project Development at MassDOT. I want to assure you that my team is fully engaged in the review of the community path in Belmont, and any waiving of requirements was let's say waiving a review. I feel that the most successful project is when we can get out in front of the public and get some public input from not only abutters but those within the community. So we will on occasion waive certain requirements, and it was waived only for the fact that I wanted to get a public hearing scheduled so I could get community input, versus the review of any design elements to the project, structural, civil, MBTA or MassDOT will be fully engaged, and we will be responsible. But I did waive the requirement on the bridge selection for the specific goal of getting in front of the public and getting the community's input. But that's in no way jeopardizing the safety and the design of the project, but I wanted to at least go on record. And if you have some comments, I don't care if it's 3 pages or 300 pages, you send them to our attention and we will address them with the design team and with the project proponents. And, you know, as I said, I think the most successful project is when we engage the community and the public and give people a chance to be heard, whether for or against. And our waiving of some of those requirements is sometimes to get out there and do it at an appropriate time. So we're not doing it in July and August when it may not be, we may not get the best audience with school vacations and summertime. So on occasion, we try to accelerate things so we can get that input and make sure that we're addressing the community needs as part of the project. So I don't want to go on any longer. I just wanted to commit to that no safety standards were compromised or anything like that. It was strictly a measure on our part to get out in front of the community as soon as we could to get input on the project design and specifics. And we will continue to, my team will continue to conduct our design reviews for that project to move forward. And I thank you.
Thank you, John, for that clarification. Let's move on to committee chairs report. Derek Cravat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, I wanted to mention that the Unified Planning Work Program Committee met last Thursday with a few agenda items. One, to finalize the list of discrete studies that will be funded through the fiscal year 2025 UPWP, and 3 discrete studies were selected, those being on a second study on roadway pricing to look at replica data and potential impacts of a potential pricing policy on travel patterns, as well as 2 other studies, one looking at the relationship between bicycle travel and transit trips, and then another on e-cargo, bike delivery, and impacts on kind of first and last mile freight connections and things like that. So the full UPWP will be presented in the coming months, but just wanted to mention we did select those discrete studies. We also took up the UPWP amendment number 2, which is listed on this agenda today, and the committee did recommend that the MPO approve that amendment and also waive the public comment period to ensure the changes can be approved in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Jen Rowe.
Just a quick note that while I don't have a date for the next TIPper committee, I am in conversation with Ethan about getting something scheduled for May so that we can, as I had mentioned in the comments, like debrief the process and talk through kind of what we might want to be looking at while it's still fresh on our minds. Very much. And thanks everyone who's participated in the process this year.
Thanks, Jen. Tom Bent. Can you unmute?
Yep, they just did. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned back on April 4th, the MOU Update Committee is bringing to the board today on action item 11, a topic of the RTA representation on the board for a vote. Staff will help present some of the background and work that our committee has done to bring this recommendation forward. And we have representatives from both MWRTA, Metro West Regional Transit Authority, and the Cape Ann Transportation Authority present to field any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tom. The next agenda item is the Regional Transportation Advisory Council report. Is Len Diggins here?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair, and thank you. And so I have nothing to report because we have not had a meeting since last week, but we will be having a meeting next Thursday, to review the TIP. And instead of having a separate 3C committee to compose a letter, it's going to be as many members of the council as wants to meet. So that's why it's being posted as a public meeting. So I hesitate to invite anyone here because I'm sure you're like had enough of the TIP, but if you want more, you're always welcome to join our meetings. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Len. Let's go on to the first action item, which is the March 21st meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Sandy Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will make that motion. I do have one quick amendment to the minutes.
Sure.
minor detail on page 10. Chris Hart from the MBTA works in our system-wide accessibility office, not in capital planning. So with that correction just being requested, I move that we approve the meeting minutes for March 21st.
Absolutely. We will incorporate that amendment into the meeting minutes. And Jen Rowe.
Motion.
Great. So we have a motion and a second. Dave, can you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Derek Cravat,
Yes. Derek Cravat, yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnston, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassi, yes.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Yes.
Jim Fitzgerald, calling Jim Fitzgerald.
Hey, sorry, couldn't unmute. Jim Fitzgerald, yes.
No problem. Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
Ned Codd,
Ned Codd, yes.
Sarah Suarez,
Sarah Suarez abstain.
Roger. Aaron Shute,
Aaron Shute, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Kristen Guichard,
Kristen Guichard, yes.
Eric Johnson,
Eric Johnson, abstain.
Roger. Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
thank you. Melissa Tentopoulos,
Melissa Tentopoulos, yes.
thank you. Rachel Benson,
Rachel Benson, yes.
Steve Olenoff,
Steve Olenoff, yes.
thank you. With that, the motion carries, and back to you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you, David. Let's go on to agenda night number 8, tip development, Mass Highway projects. And I'm going to pass it to John Bouchard.
Thank you, Eric. I'm going to turn off my camera, but I will be here. I'm just because I have a few things on my computer and I am not in the office with multiple screens to be able to look at everything. So the 25 through 29 statewide highway program was posted to the agenda, and you know there's over 90, I think 90 different line items and projects, and I'm not going to go through every one of those. I hope no one's offended by that. And so I don't have a formal presentation to present all of that work, but wanted to highlight a few key goals and some major projects, greater than 20 million on the DOT side of the program. Our focus is primarily on state of good repair, so reliability and modernization. The first few projects that I want to highlight and had already been programmed in prior steps, so this will be a review. So for fiscal year 25, we have a cleaning and painting of I-93 in the city of Boston, over the MBTA, Columbia Road, and the Red Line for approximately $20 million. That's a bridge preservation and reliability project. Next, in fiscal 25, we have Canton, Dedham, and Westwood, which is an interstate maintenance and related work on a portion of I-95 and I-93 for about $29.9 million, and that's under our reliability program. For fiscal 26, we have a Somerville Bridge Preservation, which is Interstate 93 northbound and southbound from Route 28 to Temple Street, which is denoted as our phase 2 under our reliability program. That's at $188 million. Moving on to fiscal year 27. And we have a couple of overlaps that we've AC'd bridge projects over 27 and 28. So I'm going to go through those just in reference which year. So we have City of Boston bridge replacement, which is Storrow Drive over the Boca ramps. We have $64 million programmed in fiscal 27 and $43 million programmed in fiscal year 28. In the city of Cambridge, we have the bridge replacement for Memorial Drive over Brookline Street, programmed at fiscal 27 at $25 million and in fiscal year 28 for $24 million. And then we have Blue Hill Avenue in the city of Boston, over the railroad, which is a combination of, I think, commuter rail and others in fiscal year 27 at $22.5 million and around $11 million programmed in fiscal year 28. Moving on strictly to fiscal year 28, we have Gloucester, which is bridge reconstruction, Western Ave over the Blinman Canal, which is approximately $62.7 million. And let's see. We also have a project that will overlap fiscal year 28 and 29 in Lynn and Revere, which is Route 1A over the Saugus River. We have $43.5 million programmed in fiscal 28 and $41 million programmed in fiscal year 29. And then lastly, in fiscal 28, another one that will bridge over 2 years, we have the deck and superstructure replacement for Beacon Street over the I-90, which is at approximately mile marker 132.2 at around $9.5 million in fiscal 28 and another $31 million in fiscal year 29. And then the last couple I have for fiscal year 29, one of them is in Somerville, bridge replacement of Route 28, which is McGrath Highway over the Somerville Ave extension in the MBTA, approximately $30 million programmed in fiscal 29, and a project that will also span into fiscal year 30. And the overall project goal or project total is $83 million. So at this point, we have $30 million programmed in fiscal 29, and the remainder will be programmed in fiscal year 30. But we don't know what those values are going to be at this point. Last two I wanted to discuss in fiscal 29, we have Morrissey Boulevard over Dorchester Bay, which is a DCR bridge project that MassDOT will be helping with. And that project, we have programmed $30 million in fiscal 29, and then it'll be AC'd over a number of years. The total project value at this time is $155 million. And then lastly, all of those bridge projects were under our, just to clarify, our reliability and modernization and bridge preservation programs. One of our modernization on a roadway project, and the value being approximately $20 million, is in Canton and Milton, which is the reconstruction of Route 138 from Royal Street to Dollar Lane. That is one of, luckily we got one of our roadway projects into the mix. Let's see. Last thing I wanted to state as part of our presentation, as I said, there were 90 projects in the spreadsheet that were shared with the eSTIP application that we work with the regional MPOs. That information is in there, and it's not like we sent out new information. We only added in the fiscal year 29 and those projects that'll branch over to future years. As I stated to Ms. Laser from Belmont, my team is fully engaged in project development and review, whether it's design, review, oversight, coordination. If there is anything that gets stuck, I want you to reach out, through DOT, through the project manager, through me. And my job is to assess, the project, the design. I work very closely with my team from our design side, from our program managers to our district offices to our right-of-way team, environmental team, and then our section directors, which is project management and major projects. And we do so in a collaborative manner to get input and complexities for delivering individual projects by the program dates. When we conduct our readiness review, generally in January and February, we make recommendations for programming years based on our review of the current projects listed in that fiscal year 25 through 29 STIP, and with input from all those sections. Our recommendations are really a snapshot in time. It's really that at that particular time, what's our level of ability to deliver that project within the programmed fiscal year. And if we make a recommendation to push something off a year or to accelerate a year, it's based on the ability to deliver and not allowing the funds to lapse. It's not a measure of importance of the project or a project that we don't like or anything like that. So we make our recommendations based on the risk of money lapsing in a given fiscal year. And we try to make those recommendations. And if we could do it later in the year, if the money was never at risk, then we would keep rolling the dice and pushing the project forward, and we make a decision at the last minute if we could. But with programming and with the value of money committed to these projects, we have to make a recommendation to be able to deliver within that programming year. Last thing I want to say is we work closely with our Office of Transportation Planning for programming, shifting on the STIP. To improve the process, we conduct our weekly priority of projects meetings on current year and year 2 projects. We've also set up quarterly municipal priority of projects meetings with cities and towns, plus their designers. And when we do that quarterly, we do it in January, April, June, and August. We have added the transportation managers group from the regional MPOs to that muni pop, so they can participate in the process and see how the sausage is made, so to speak. I continue to believe that our engagement and collaborative approach will help us deliver projects more efficiently with appropriate input. But if something, as I said, gets stuck, don't hesitate to elevate it. Put it up there, get it through the PM, get it to my team, get it to me, and we will try to mitigate and address those constraints and find a way to deliver it. That's all I have, and I would take any questions.
Thank you, John. I see that Len has his hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, John. I didn't want to interrupt you, but was there a presentation that went along with this? Because we just saw one screen.
Right. No, there wasn't a presentation, Len. There was a posting of about 90 projects that are programmed in that next 4 to 5 year cycle.
Okay, I saw that, so I didn't know, because if you did, I was just going to ask, if we could.
My apologies. I didn't think that I could do it justice with 90 projects and do it in 15 minutes.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. It seemed like you were listing a subset of them, and so I was going to refer to that. But yeah, I saw the PDF that was posted with this, so I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay.
And John, the projects that you highlighted, those are sort of the bigger, more cost.
Yes, they were all $20 million and up. I mean, obviously with 90 plus projects, I highlighted, a little more than a dozen. I will share my notes with Ethan so that they can get posted attached to the meeting notes. So that way it'll ease that preparation, and I'll get that to him before the end of the day.
Thanks. Steve Onoff.
I just want to point out some things that are important to the Trek subregion, the Route 138 project. Glad to see that's moving forward. That's a very important project for the Blue Hills Reservation. A lot of pedestrians they're just crossing the road for both getting to and from parking lots and the trails in those facilities. So that's an important pedestrian project. Never mind the traffic. The other one is the interstate maintenance and related work on I-95 and 93. I don't know how much of that is to fix those bridges down there. Those are really bridges that should not be fixed. They should be replaced as part of the Canton Interchange project. We've been waiting 25 years for those. Obviously, they've been functionally obsolete for years. As you can see, they're structurally deficits also. And why are we wasting, again, millions of dollars? I don't know how much, but I know they're working on that project today because it was on the traffic report that was happening. How much money are we spending to put Band-Aids on those bridges when they should be replaced? John, you happen to know that?
I don't know if John can answer that.
I don't have a breakdown of the project, and because that project that let me just look at my notes just one thing here. So we're developing the design on that. Steve, and I'm sure the specific items are not, the completion of that design and what's included in that, is still being worked on by our district office and our design team. And when I have more details on that, I will share them.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Jim Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly a lot of awesome, great work here. In the STIP, I should say. But obviously it's not necessarily within our purview. It's more just information sharing. But I think we've always kind of wanted to get this information earlier, just because I think it's kind of one of the main venues for distributing projects that are coming up in our municipality. So I think we had hoped in the operations plan to get this information earlier, like late March, I think we have in there. And I certainly appreciate getting it. And again, not necessarily within this board's purview to approve or comment and to any substantial information, but just for information sharing. I think it'd be great if we could try to, get these lists a little bit earlier than what we're seeing them now.
If I could answer, Jim,
Sure.
that this list is in the overall tip list. The only things that are new that I discussed, I mean, I highlighted projects, but that's in the 24 to 28 step. And then the new stuff that I added is only the things that are in 29 and programmed for 30 that are new. So all that information is on the STIPS list on the state side of the program. So it's not like I'm presenting something brand new today. I mean, I highlighted a couple of projects, but the overall 24 to 28 STIP, we had all those projects already listed there. The only new ones that I referenced were the 29 through 30, which is the future year of the overall TIP for the region.
Thanks, John. Anything else, Jim? John, I have a question for you about the Boker project. I've followed that project over the years, but I haven't followed it recently. And I'm just wondering, and maybe Jim and others in the city of Boston, I'm just curious where that project stands. And I know there's been talk over the years of either just kind of keeping the design similar and replacing what's there, or trying to bring it down at grade and try to reconnect the river and the fens and sort of daylight that water and parkland that's under there. And I'd love to just know, is the design, is it pre 25%? Where does that stand?
It's at the 25% and moving towards the next phase. We've been coordinating with the Conservancy and on the project and with the city of Boston. When we're ready to have our next public outreach, we'll be doing that very soon and moving that design forward. Right now, it's unclear if we're going to advance that project as a design build project or as a design bid build. And that will dictate our schedule a little bit more, but it is programmed for two fiscal years, fiscal year 27 at about $60+ million and fiscal year 28 around $43 million. So I mean, it's a sizable effort, and it is making significant changes to that area, what's being programmed. And as we continue to work through with the Conservancy, we'll be able to bring that forward and give a little bit more detail on the project specifics.
Jen Rowe?
Chair, thanks for that information, John. That was going to be one of my questions. Also, I know it can be a little confusing. I believe there's multiple Boker projects on happening right now. I know we've been very engaged with both MassDOT and DCR on the one that's further south around Boylston Street. We really appreciated having many opportunities. I think we at 25 and now at 75% on that. And MassDOT and your consultants have been very receptive to feedback, and believe it's becoming a much better project for it. The project that I believe Eric asked about was the Store Drive over Boker ramps project. That one we haven't, at least to my knowledge, engaged much to date, but we would very much like to kind of discuss how that connects with a lot of other projects that we have going on in the area. So I can follow up after the meeting. Get something on the books. My understanding is that it hasn't yet hit the 25% threshold.
I thought, I don't, because of the multiple pieces through there, Jen, I'm not sure what the full status of that is. I'll double check that, but reach out to my office and I'll put Mike O'Dowd and his team in touch.
Thank you so much.
Great. Any other questions for John? Okay, not seeing any. John, thank you very much. Appreciate the
Thank
overview.
you.
We'll move on to agenda item 9, which is an action item, and that's the federal fiscal year 25 to 21 tip, 25 to 29 tip, and I'll turn it over to Ethan LaPointe.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ethan LaPointe. I am the Transportation Improvement Program Manager with the Boston Region MPO. My presentation here today is the culmination of several meetings that we've been having over the past few weeks to develop a draft federal fiscal years 2025 to 2029 tip document for release. So, as part of this presentation, I'll be providing a brief, summary overview on what the 2025 to 29 tip has within the regional target program, as far as where investments are being made relative to investment programs and across various communities, and also discuss some of the next steps that were alluded to earlier as far as what will be happening over the next few weeks during the draft public comment period of the tip, and beyond that as we move into the summer before we develop the 2026 to 2030 tip this fall. So with that, if we can move on to the next slide, we have some resources that were provided in advance of today's presentation. The big one on the next slide being the draft tip document for the next 5 federal fiscal years. This document is available on the MPO calendar in both PDF and HTML formats, and the project lists, which detail the scenarios for both the Regional Target Program and the MassDOT statewide highway programs, are also regional transit authorities and the MBTA are in Chapter 3, if anybody would like to refer to that. Table 3.7 being the highway list that was mentioned previously as well. And again, the TIP programming scenario has also once again been made available for reference there. Each of the projects that are in this programming scenario can also be found in the draft TIP document, and Appendix A also has additional information on how these projects may have scored. So with that, if we could go on to the next slide, just to provide a review at a very high level as far as what is in this TIP document, the federal fiscal years 2025 to 29 TIP funds 70 projects in the Regional Target Program, or utilizing the approximately $730 million of funding in the overall TIP that is apportioned to be utilized for municipal priority or regional priority projects. Among these 70 projects, there are multiple new projects in that list, with the majority of those new projects, about 32 or so, I believe, being represented in funding programs that are a little bit smaller. 10 being the largest investment program of those new projects can be found in Community Connections. There are 8 projects that are new that are in the Transit Transformation Program, 8 design projects for about $8 million in federal fiscal years 25 and 26. $6 million of that 8 is in 25. There's about $2 to $3 million in 26. And then 6 construction projects for roadway and trail work. And of those 6 projects, 2 of those projects had previously been incorporated into the MassDOT statewide highway program in the federal fiscal years 2024 to 28 TIP. So they are new to the Regional Target Program, but they were previously funded elsewhere. If we can move on to the next slide, just to give a little bit more detail onto those 70 projects. Again, there's about $730 million that is being that is allocated for regional prioritization in the federal fiscal years 2025 to 29 TIP, of which around $723 million of that is currently programmed to projects. There's about 4.8 million that is unprogrammed. I should also clarify as well that there's additional funding set aside in advance for future application rounds of the Community Connections and Transit Transformation funding programs. To help visualize this a little bit better from those 70 projects, the next slide is a pie chart that shows the investment program apportionments between each of these programs. So that previous slide showed a table showing the total amount of funding to each investment program and the number of projects. This pie chart shows the same thing, just in a more visually appealing and easier to decipher manner. So the largest investment program in terms of percentage of funding, not number of projects, is the Complete Streets Investment Program at about 46% of overall funding. Major infrastructure is the second largest in terms of percent at around 23.6% of funding. And Transit Transformation, which had its first formal application cycle in the federal fiscal year's 25-29 TIP at 11%. That is followed by Bike and Ped at 9.5% and intersection improvements at around 6.5%. The Community Connections and Bike Share Support programs sort of work together in tandem, with Community Connections at 1.6% and Bike Share Support at 1.2% approximately. And there's less than 1% of unprogrammed funding here on this table. The natural next question when talking about funding apportionments relative to investment programs is how these apportionments compare to those that were set up by the Long Range Transportation Program Destination 2050. On the next slide, this chart shows in blue the Long Range Transportation Plan goals set in the MPO's most recent LRTP, which was adopted last July, and in orange shows the actual funding allocations by investment program relative to those LRTP goals. The thing that I'd like to use as the headline for this slide is that this is very similar to where these targets were being reached in last year's TIP cycle for federal fiscal years 2024 to 2028. Complete Streets is substantively similar to the LRTP target, as is the case for Bike Share Support and Community Connections. Where there is variation is in the Major Infrastructure Program, where its target is at 30% and the actual funding level is more around 24%. As has been discussed previously, this is largely because of a change in definition as to what kinds of projects may be classified as within the Major Infrastructure Program. That is to say that a more stringent definition on what can get into major infrastructure means that there is generally a smaller amount of money relative to previous TIP years in that program. With intersection improvements, it's actually somewhat of the inverse case where many intersection improvement projects, the reason why that allocation is not yet at the 12% target of the LRTP, have been expanded to behave more like a complete streets project. Rather than addressing a corridor of signals or just a single signal, many of these projects grow and develop into being a comprehensive, complete street style kind of investment. To kind of fill that gap, the bicycle and pedestrian network connections projects and their allocation at around 9.5% is above the 5% target for the LRTP. And in a similar situation for transit transformation, given the utilization of surplus funding in the first few years of the TIP, not only during this TIP cycle, but in many recent TIP cycles, that allocation of around 11% is in excess of the 5% target as identified by the long-range plan. So with that, I have mentioned multiple times in this presentation so far, and if we go on to the next slide, that what we're talking about and showing on all of these graphs is the Regional Target Program. Again, this is about $730 million, but this 5-year capital plan, the TIP, contains around $6.25 million when accounting for the MassDOT Highway Program, which has about $1.64 billion, the MBTA's transit program at around $3.75 billion, and the programs of the regional transit authorities, the Cape Ann Transportation Authority, and Metro West Regional Transit Authorities, which across 5 years are at about $107 million there. So again, what we've been focusing on for many of the recent meetings is the $730 approximately million for regional prioritization within this pool, but the TIP contains projects and other set-asides amounting to about $6.25 billion, I should say. And all of that is detailed in the draft TIP document to be subject to any comment or feedback during this upcoming comment period. On that note, to get to some next steps, again, this is a draft document. So if we can go on to the next slide. Given that this is a draft document, there are some changes that are going to be made over the next few weeks. For one, many of the projects in the TIP are not going to be kind of sitting there waiting until the TIP is endorsed before they make progress. Therefore, there may be some changes to project funding numbers during the draft comment period. In tandem with the MPO developing its regional TIP, just as the other 12 are also doing the same, other 12 MPOs I should say, MassDOT and the MBTA are developing their own capital plans as well, and some of those items may also be subject to change as part of their prioritization process. There may also be additional detail in the form of project descriptions or changes in funding sources for both figures and tables throughout the TIP document. There are also some items that are not going to be added in until the final draft of the TIP, this being one component of Appendix C, that appendix being the one that details the public comment and engagement that will take place during the draft comment period. To provide that summary, there is a summary already present for engagement that has already taken place, so this is just upcoming work. And then Appendix G will also have additional tables to describe the operations and maintenance summaries for regional transit authorities in the MBTA. The operations and maintenance summary for MassDOT is already included in Appendix G. In addition to that, as some members have already observed, there are some items that are going to warrant some correction or adjustment across the TIP document. A full list of any changes that are made to the document will be compiled and then presented at the June 6th MPO meeting and posted in advance. That table will delineate exactly where in the document changes were made and why that change was made. So with that, if we can go on to the next slide, just to speak very briefly about public engagement for the draft TIP. So as part of a public comment period, public comment for the federal fiscal years 2025 to 29 TIP will begin next week on April 22nd for 30 days until May 22nd. This is a 30-day public comment period, which is above the 21-day required minimum in order to provide for additional opportunity for feedback on the TIP document. Staff, in addition to the kinds of feedback that can be provided, both in terms of written letters and also via online comment portals, are also looking for opportunities for any form of in-person engagement around the draft TIP document as well. So if your community or any of your organizations are holding some kind of in-person event, please feel free to reach out to MPO staff if there's any interest there in having community organizations or other parties like the MPO tabling at those kinds of events. So with that, once the public comment period concludes on the next slide, the next stage is the endorsement of the TIP, which is expected to take place at the June 6th, 2024 MPO board meeting. The TIP, however, would not take effect until October 1st, this fall, 2024. What we are hoping to do, however, in the meantime, in addition to a May meeting, is to utilize the TIP process readiness and engagement committee meeting to provide additional detail and debriefing on some of the key matters and challenges that arose not only during this past TIP cycle, but as a way to address potential challenges that may repeat themselves in the federal fiscal years 2026 to 2030 TIP cycle, the kickoff for which happens in October, right when this TIP takes effect. So with that on the next slide, the requested action by staff today is that the board votes to release the federal fiscal years 2025 to 29 TIP for a 30-day public review, with comment beginning on April 22nd and concluding May 22nd at 5 p.m. And with that, on the next slide, happy to field any questions.
Okay, any questions for Ethan? Jen Rowe.
This is more, I don't know, general question, not necessarily directed to Ethan. I do appreciate the list that, like, the summary of the types of changes that may occur between the draft and the final document, and the note that we'll like have a chance to see those sort of highlighted, review them. It kind of occurred to me, I wonder if that's also something, whether that's something that has also prepared. This is a follow-up to Jim's question, in that I understand that we've seen the 24 to 28 list of projects, and so maybe what we're most interested in is seeing just where that has changed to the 25 to 29. So that's a sort of more of a question, and wondering if that's something that could be prepared for our upcoming meeting on May 2nd, so we have some time to look at that.
To speak to, I think, the document itself, as part of the scenario development process for the regional target projects, at least, MPO staff did compile that in the scenario spreadsheet changes between 24-28 and 25-29. So again, given that final scenario is posted, that can be referred to there. I cannot speak to the ability to compile such a list of changes for the other programs in the tip, especially by the May 2nd date. So I may need to defer to others on that.
I'm sorry, Ethan, what was the question? For Jen?
Yeah. Jen, I don't know if you want to restate it.
So basically, I'm interested in seeing if there's a list of changes between the 24 to 28 statewide list that we heard from John earlier, and the 25 to 29 list, so that we could just, rather than, I know that's a huge list of projects that are in that document, so we can just focus in on what has changed year to year.
So you'd like to see what's changed between last year's tip, basically, for the statewide projects and this year?
Yeah.
John, do you know, is that something easy to provide? Just sort of what is sort of the difference between, and maybe Jen, are you interested also in seeing like project cost changes, or are you just interested in like what are new projects?
Mostly new projects, and maybe like if significant changes in project cost and readiness, that similar to kind of what we do for the regional target program.
Eric, I can certainly look into that. I don't want to overcommit my team too much. I mean, as I said, I appreciate the question, Jen, and the question that Jim asked earlier, and taking the prior 4 to 5 year program and saying that I have 90 projects, and then when we move to the next, we do move projects around, as you know, cost changes, et cetera. And that information is available. I'm not sure how easy it will be to compile into a readable and presentation type of document. If you want to bring it to the full board on the next meeting on the 2nd, I'll see what I can do. I don't want to overcommit, because I have other things. I'm traveling next week on behalf of the chief, and then the following week is, we only have a couple days, and then I'm actually putting together we have our innovation conference on the 30th and the 1st, and I'm presenting on the 2nd already, and I'm not going to be here for the 2nd. The MPO meeting on the 2nd, I'll have one of my team in my place. So I'll look into that and see how we can share it. And I'll work with Derek Cravat and Dave Moller's team from Office of Transportation Planning to assemble that.
And John, did I hear you? Is this correct? You said that really the new, like, there are no new projects in 25 through 28. It's really 29 is where there are new projects. The same.
Let me just, so I could clarify, that's more of an overarching statement. We may have taken something that was in a future year and accelerated into a 25 to 28 because of, funding availability, or because, we identified a deficiency or a deterioration in pavement, and saying, this can't wait 4 more years. We're going to have to get out there sooner. So I mean, but overarching, there's not any, new projects that were that have been added in that window. Mostly everything that's added is in future year. But again, we have bridges that all of a sudden, we've got to accelerate this. We have funding opportunity if something is going to bump out, and we shuffle the deck and reprioritize things. So I'm sure there are a few changes there. That's why I don't know how extensive the list would be. But I'll get my team working on it.
Yeah, even if, I don't think even if you guys could do something that's just like a written, like, memo document, it doesn't have to be like some fancy spreadsheet that shows, multicolored things moving out. And even if it was just literally like, here are the projects that basically move to later, some later fiscal years, and, I think if all the ones in 29 are new, that's obvious.
Right, all, yeah, exactly.
And, here are the ones that weren't ready and got pushed out. Maybe Jen, is that what you're looking for?
Jen's
Yeah.
looking for whatever she can get.
Yeah. I think we'll take whatever we can get. And
Yeah.
again, I don't think it has to be a fancy.
I'm not going to be as diligent and color minded as Ethan. He's got great charts and great,
Right.
I'm just a simple civil engineer. I put this stuff together, on a shoestring when I got a few hours.
I like simple. I see Derek Schuster with his hand raised. Maybe Derek's willing to do this for you. I don't know. Derek?
Yeah, hi. I'm happy to export a STIP investments report for the Boston region for 2024 to 2028 as an Excel, and then a 2025 to 29 as Ethan's presented. And if you run a crosstab analysis on those, Jen, you can see what the difference is. I'll forward it to Ethan so he could share it.
Okay, that'd be great. That might
Make sure
be
make sure you copy me, Derek, because they're going to ask me about it at some point.
I will, John.
Thank you.
And John, we're going to make you create a pivot table in that.
I know. I have teams for that. That's not my forte.
Okay, and I see Derek has his hand raised too. Derek?
Yeah, I was just going to build on that. I was going to get in touch with you, Jen, offline anyway, but yeah, just because Schuster mentioned it, we can definitely get you some information. And we do also have readiness reports that we develop internally that look at kind of summarizing changes that come out of readiness days. And so we have one for both 24 and 28 and then 25 to 29. And that has a little more detail on which projects get moved back and for what reasons. So some combination of the reports Derek Schuster mentioned and those I think should answer your question. So we'll certainly follow up with you and yeah, copy you in on those, John, to get you those. And if anyone else has similar requests or wants the same information, we're definitely happy to provide that. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Okay. Len?
Yes, I hear Excel exports and I just roll, so you can send CC me on all of that too. And so I appreciate Jen's question because it's a really bold one. It's one I wouldn't have had the courage to ask, but I am curious, about what Jen is looking for in this, because when we asked for this as part of our work, we're trying to understand what's causing the changes as to help us with the next iteration of the tip. And I was wondering if that's what Jim was going for, because in that case, I think we need like a lot of information, but as John said, we'll take what we can get, and especially those exports. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Len. I see somebody has their hand raised with the screen name Wylip.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Yemlip. I'm with the city of Malden.
Okay.
I have missed my public comment time slot, but I just want to mention the mayor of Malden, Mayor Christensen, submit a letter requesting the MPO to the Route 60 project in the current TIP design pilot program. The project is Route 60 redesign. It's a 2.6 mile long run east-west. It's a major throughway in Malden connecting Route 1 and I-93. And the Orange Line T station is on Route 60 in Malden downtown as well. We recently complete a pilot bus lane, bike lane project on one of the 1 mile section of the Route 60 in downtown, and the project improved bus travel time, bus stops, and we would like to see this feature incorporated into the design of Route 60 as part of the project. And I just want to mention that the design will be, include complete street features, pedestrian improvement, transit improvement throughout the whole corridor of Route 60 in Malden. And I'm hoping that the letter can get read into the meeting record today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that public comment and absolutely into the record. Any other questions or discussion about the TIP document? Okay, so Ethan, can you go back? We are looking to make a motion to release this draft 25 to 29 tip for a 30-day public review comment. And I think we'd like to make a motion for that. Len, is that why you have your hand raised?
It sure is, Mr. Chair.
What's that?
I said it sure is, Mr. Chair. My hand is
Okay,
raised to make that motion.
Can you make the motion, please?
Sure, and with appreciation for the great leadership of the chair, the tipper, our Chair Rowe, and Ethan's wonderful support, I'd like to make a motion to release the draft tip for public review, 30-day public review.
Great. Len's made the motion. Can I have a second? Tom Bent.
The suspense.
Sorry, had trouble unmuting for some reason. I will second Len's motion to put the draft tip out for review.
Right, so we have a motion and a second. Dave, can you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Derek Cravat.
Derek Cravat, yes.
Next, John Bouchard.
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano.
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston.
Sandy Johnston, yes.
Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, yes.
Len Diggins.
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe.
Oh, yes.
Jim Fitzgerald.
Gerald, yes.
Jay Monty.
Jay Monty, yes.
Ned Cod.
Ned Cod, yes.
Sarah Suarez.
Suarez, yes.
Aaron Shute.
Aaron Shute, yes.
Tom Bent.
Tom Bent, yes.
Kristen Guichard.
Kristen Guichard, yes.
Eric Johnson.
Eric Johnson, yes.
Darlene Wynn.
Darlene Wynn, yes.
Melissa Tantakis.
Melissa Tintakos, yes.
Rachel Benson.
Rachel Benson, yes.
And Tom O'Rourke.
Steve Olenoff, Fixer Region, yes.
Steve Olenoff, thank you. And with that, the motion carries for the release of the tip. Back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Well done. Congratulations, Ethan. This was a lot of great work to get something out with so many moving parts. So the next agenda item is the UPWP Amendment 2, and I'll turn it over to Sri Lekha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. My presentation today will be on Amendment 2 to the Federal Fiscal Year 2024 UPWP. Amendment 2 consists of adjustments to ongoing work program budgets. The details of which budgets are being adjusted can be found within the memo posted to the meeting calendar today. The meeting calendar also has redlined and clean versions of the UPWP to track the changes in budgets. These adjustments are primarily made to respond to evolving needs, staff capacity, and staff attrition. Similar to previous adjustments we have presented on program budgets specifically, a reduction in a budget does not indicate that the work planned will not be completed. It just means that staff do not need as many resources as anticipated to complete said work. And these adjustments have a net zero impact on the overall budget of the UPWP. Next slide, please. On April 11th, the UPWP committee voted to waive the 21-day comment period and approve this amendment. And today I'm requesting that this board also vote to waive the 21-day public comment period and approve this amendment as presented. We are asking you to waive the comment period so that staff have adequate time to commence and complete any planned work before the end of the fiscal year with their adjusted budgets. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions and I'll turn it back to the chair.
Great. Any questions about this UPWP amendment? Okay, not seeing any. Sri Lekha, would you like a motion to approve this for a 21-day public comment period? Or are we waiving that? Is that?
Oh, I guess I'm requesting to waive a vote to waive
I'm sorry.
the comment period. Yeah.
I should read, we're requesting that we vote to waive the 21-day public comment period and approve this amendment as presented today. Can someone make that motion, please? Tom Bennett.
I will make that motion to request to waive the 21-day public review period and approve this amendment as presented.
Aaron Shute.
Seconded.
Thank you. Dave, can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Derek Cravat,
Derek Cravat, yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano, John Romano. I will return. Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnson, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
General, yes.
Jim Fitzgerald,
Fitzgerald, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
Ned Cod,
Ned Cod, yes.
Sarah Suarez,
Sarah Suarez, yes.
Aaron Shute,
Aaron Shute, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Kristen Guichard,
Kristen Guichard, yes.
Eric Johnson,
Eric Johnson, yes.
Darlene Wynn,
Darlene Wynn, yes.
Melissa Tantakis,
Melissa Tantakis, yes.
Rachel Benson,
Rachel Benson, yes.
Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
Have I missed anyone on the vote? With that, the motion carries. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Dave. The next item is talking about the RTA representation on the MPO board, and back to Dave.
Thank you. My name is Dave Hong. I am staff to the MPO and manager of MPO activities. Before the board today, I'd like to share 3 items. 1, a brief background on how the topic of RTA representation emerged and has evolved. 2, provide an overview of what the MOU Update Committee has worked on in order to bring a recommendation to this board. And 3, provide a recommendation for your discussion and deliberation. For clarity, beyond the MBTA, which already has a seat on this board, it is the 2 RTAs, namely Metro West Regional Transit Authority and the Cape Ann Transportation Authority, CATA, and MWRTA, which will be the focus of today's conversation. Please note that representatives from both of these RTAs are present today to add remarks as well as answer questions that the board may have. Now, to provide context, in 2022, the FHWA and the FTA issued a recommendation to the Boston Region MPO in our federal review to work with the Metro West Regional Transportation Authority and the Cape Ann Transportation Authority to ensure that these providers of public transportation are represented on the MPO board in a way that is satisfactory to all parties. The federal entities had issued a similar recommendation in 2014. The recommendation, though, did not prescribe the precise format for representation. In 2019, the board opted to establish a transit committee led by the RTAs and for the RTAs to have a voting seat on the board representing the interests of that transit committee. Ultimately, this conditional structure was not agreed upon by the RTAs as satisfactory. The 2022 federal review noted this outcome, and in November of 2023, the MPO board delegated revisions of the MOU, including the topics of RTA representation, to an MOU update committee. Since then, this MOU update committee has reviewed the federal regulations related to the composition of MPO boards, met with the 2 RTAs to understand what form of representation would be satisfactory, and discussed as a committee a number of germane items, to include their motivation for joining the MPO board, their technical expertise, serviced populations, and staff capacity to partake in board and committee activities. This year, in the month of March, the committee reached consensus to bring the following recommendations to the board. If we can move to the next slide, please. The recommendation by the MOU committee to this board is the following: to add one permanent voting seat on the MPO board, shared by the region's RTAs on a rotational basis, in this case, the Metro West Regional Transit Authority, and again, Cape Ann Transportation Authority, each serving 2-year terms, and with the ability to serve as one other's alternate. In terms of when this would then become effective, is with the signing of the updated MOU, which would be targeted prior to the 2024 November annual meeting. The ask before this board will be then to discuss, ask questions, and ultimately vote upon this recommendation given today. With that, I will turn it back to the chair, and thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I think Jim Nee and Felicia Webb, Jim Nee from Metro West RTA and Felicia Webb from CADA were interested in speaking as well. Are they here?
Present.
Oh, there you go, Jim.
Absolutely. Thank you for recognizing me, Chair. I hope you can hear me well. I'm seeing nodding heads, so that's wonderful. I want to start off by thanking Dave, Annette, the entire CTPS staff. Wonderful to work with throughout this process and on every process that we work with them on. Just truly appreciate the time. Dave did a fantastic job of summarizing the last several months, but also the last several years and actually sort of the last decade. I've been in my current position for the last 2 years, so I've been pretty well engaged in that. I don't want to go over all the details and all the reasons for each individual question or each individual piece of this conversation, but essentially there's 2 fundamental questions that have come up, I think, repeatedly. And I just want to kind of acknowledge them here at the start, but certainly answer specific Q&As on any sub-questions on this. And those 2 questions are sort of, will the RTAs be engaged in this process, especially on non-RTA related topics? And sort of why should the RTAs have a seat on the board? For the first question, I can answer with a resounding yes for both myself and I think for CADA as well. All the topics that the MPO deals with that historically one might not think of as an RTA topic, they really are in some way, shape, or form. Transportation equity, roads, bridges, bike shares, MBTA, congestion mitigation, walkability, safety, intersections, and even freight. Often when I'm meeting before the subcommittee or even sometimes making comments in the public section for this board, you'll hear the freight train going through our area that bisects a number of our intersections in our region. We truly care about all the things that the MPO care about, and we will be heavily engaged with staff members in these processes. And then why should the RTAs have a seat? That's a sort of philosophical question, but one of the core areas that we look at is it's because the MPO is here to be part of really a public engagement process to represent different communities throughout the region. And whether those are sub-regional communities, MassDOT as the transportation agency or authority for the state, MBTA, Boston, all of these things, all of these regions or all of these entities represent something different, and the RTAs represent something different. It's slightly different than the T. The T obviously has a number of concerns with rail, with bus, a lot of different things, but the RTAs really focus on sort of that bus and ADA paratransit demand response service. And to put that into perspective, our proportion of fixed route riders is, sure, it's very small. It's only about 1% of the T. But if you look at the CADA and Metro West ADA ridership compared to the T, our agencies might be small on the fixed route side, but we actually provide about 15% compared to the T on the ADA side. And while that's certainly not as large as the largest transit agency in the state, it means that our focus is a little bit different. We're really focused on a number of transportation equity concerns about access for demand response clients. And it's not that the T isn't focused on that, but our focus as RTAs is just a little bit different because, again, slightly different modes and slightly different concentration of trips with transportation dependent riders in comparison. So we really do bring a unique perspective to this board, and we would love to bring that as an official member. Happy to answer any number of questions, but I'd also like to pass it over to Felicia if she has anything to add regarding the topic.
Felicia, are you here?
I am here. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. So I am Felicia. I'm the administrator up here at the Cape Ann Transportation Authority. And Jim did a fantastic job covering all of my talking points as well. I just wanted to express our appreciation for the current board members and CTPS staff over the years to represent RTA interests and all the efforts expended in working toward a solution for RTA representation on the MPO board. So, thank you.
Great. Are there any questions, either questions or comments about this proposal, this action item?
Eric, I have a question. Oh,
yeah, Melissa, we can go to you. That's fine.
Sorry. Just a question on the RTAs. For Burlington, then the RTA is Lowell, correct?
Yes, so I think I know your question. So the Lowell RTA is actually represented on the MPO that serves the Lowell region, which is the Northern Middlesex MPO, is my understanding. And so
NEMCOG.
NIMCOG, exactly.
And do they have representation on a NEMCOG? Do you know?
I believe they are on the MPO board for NIMCOG. And my understanding is that all the other MPOs in the state are on the MPO board for those regions. It is Metro West and CADA that are wholly within the Boston MPO that are not, and this is one of the reasons why they've been interested.
Okay.
And I think I'll call on Ken Miller in case he has any clarifying information about this.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Well, no, Erica, you're exactly right that all of the 14 other RTAs are represented on their respective MPOs around the state, and I just want to mention that not only is this, I think, a good thing to do, it's also federal. The germination of this whole thing was our certification review. Both the FTA and Federal Highway have recommended, strongly recommended that this occur because it is a federal requirement that operators of transportation services be directly represented on MPOs. So we first put this in as a recommendation, and I think in the 2016 certification review and also the last one, and we appreciate everybody's effort to continue to keep this conversation going and to make sure that it reaches a resolution. So we do appreciate everybody's hard work, and hopefully the MPO will approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. That's some great additional background there. Aaron Shute.
Thank you. My question is about the MOU update committee. So this is a recommendation from the committee. I think the committee itself is revisiting the MOU. Will there be other recommendations around either additional seats or will the committee be coming before or back to the MPO kind of with their full recommendation regarding that update?
So I will answer a little bit, but then maybe I can look to Tom or Tegan. My understanding is there will be forthcoming additional recommendations with respect to updating the memorandum of understanding, the MOU. I don't know if that will include additional MPO seats or not, but I'm going to pass it to Tom and then Tegan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yep, and thank you for that question. There will be more updates that will be coming forth. I just, at this time, I felt it was important to get this item off the table for the community to, make sure that the MPO board was going to be, take our recommendation and vote in favor of this piece. There are multiple other issues that we are working on and have been working on. And we're looking to finalize our report, in October. We were also recognizing, with staff's bandwidth to kind of keep working on this during the TIP process and all that. So it's a kind of a little bit of a long timeline, but we're hoping in October that we'll be presenting the final MOU recommendation. But we are not looking at this time adding any other members to the board.
Thank you, Tom. Tegan, is there any additional clarification?
Tom really covered it. The only other thing I'd point folks to, if you're interested to see what the intended sort of purview of the MOU committee was, is that there was a memo that was produced back around the time of the first annual meeting last November that laid out a framework for what this MOU committee would be addressing. And the only sort of seat related item on that memo was this RTA representation item. So Tom already said it. Right now, there's not discussion of others. That doesn't limit the MOU committee and the board as a whole from discussing items outside of that memo's suggested framework. But that framework does exist if you'd like to sort of see what the committee was tasked with. So we can put a link to that in the chat. I'll track it down while others are asking questions.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Len.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. And so the memo said that it would be effective with at the November annual meeting or the completion of the MOU update process. It said that if we weren't finished with the MOU update process by the annual meeting, then it would be effective until we did that update. And I would like to sever it, from the completion of the MOU update process and just lock it down to the annual meeting so that at the latest becomes active at that November meeting, especially since it seems like, well, I guess we haven't approved it yet, but assuming that it gets a motion and approval, that I think that would be sufficient, because if it weren't for syncing this up, like they have a 2-year term, if it wasn't for syncing it with everyone else's term, I would be in favor for, as soon as we vote for this, allowing the participation. But once again, I'd like to sever it from the finalization of the MOU update so that we take the pressure off of us. We'll probably finish in October, but let's say we don't, or it's looking like we won't, then I would prefer that we not feel pressured, to move any faster because we don't want to delay getting the RTAs on the board. That's it. Thank you.
That's an interesting point you raise here, is that this decision that we're doing today, is it to formally add them to the board, or is it to add them to this document that then we will seek future approval on? Can I get clarification from staff, Tom? What was the intent here? Was it to actually formally add them to the board, or was it to take sort of a tentative vote to say we're going to add this to the MOU and then we're going to come back later on the full MOU?
Eric, Tom, it was my understanding that it was to get this basically done now so that the boards could then focus on the rest of it. And then it would come in, that we would finish in October, and we would, that would be part of the actual vote for the final updated MOU. And if I'm wrong on that, Tegan or Dave, if you want to say something, but that's my understanding of how we were laid out to do our task.
Tegan?
Yeah, that's right. We're trying to line up the timing. To Len's point, it could be possible that something slips a little bit, that when the new terms for members start, it could be possible that we're not done yet and don't have the updated MOU in front of the board members to approve. The only issue, though, I think in terms of a technicality here, is that if you're adding a seat to the board, I think it needs to be documented in an official MOU to be legitimate. And so I don't think that unless you amend the existing MOU, perhaps with this one update, they could start sooner than the full, in terms of official representation, voting, et cetera, until we have some kind of a formal approval, either an amendment that's signed or a new MOU that's signed, and that just requires the signature of all of the board members.
Let's do this, if you will, Len. Let's take the vote as presented by staff today, and then let's direct staff, though, that if the MOU is not going to be ready by October, when we would have new members start, that we then take some separate action to enable assuming this passes today, for the RTA seat to be recognized. Does that sound good?
Totally fine with that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Jen Rowe.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I just wanted to add a quick additional item to Aaron's earlier question. We did have a bit of a discussion in the MOU committee about kind of the impact that, you know, adding another member that's sort of more based in Metro West might have on kind of proportional representation geographically. And I think in response, I think one of the proposed change, of course, not yet adopted, but to the language of the overarching MOU is to kind of revisit the membership at the same cadence at which we have the federal review cycle, which I think is like every 3 years. So I think that was just kind of one, we did kind of have a discussion around that, and that was, I think, where we landed.
Yes, that's right. And I think we all agreed from the committee that that was sort of just a good practice to do regardless. So thank you for that clarification, Jen. Any other questions about this? Great. Not seeing any. We are looking for a motion and a second to add one permanent voting seat to the MPO board shared by the region's RTAs on a rotating basis, each serving 2-year terms. Can I get a motion and a second on that? Eric Johnson?
Yep, I'll move, as you stated, that we add MPO adds a seat as set forth in the recommendations of the MOU Update Committee dated April 18, 2004, and in our background materials under the timing that you previously stated, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Len?
Begin seconds.
Great, we have a motion and a second. David, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, happy to. Derek Cravat.
Derek Cravat, yes.
John Bouchard.
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano.
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston.
Sandy Johnston, yes. I just want to add, we at the T are looking forward to coordinating and working more closely with the RTAs in this forum. And also just congratulations to the MPO on settling this. I believe this is one of the first things that I worked on when I started at CTPS in my prior role 7 years ago. So I'm very happy to see it reaching a resolution today.
Thank you, Sandy, for sharing. Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, yes.
Len Diggins.
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe.
Jen Rowe, yes.
Jim Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald, yes.
Jay Monty.
Jay Monty, yes.
Ned Codd.
Ned Codd, yes.
Sarah Suarez.
Sarah Suarez, yes.
Aaron Shute.
Aaron Cute, yes.
Tom Bent.
Tom Bent, yes.
Kristen Guichard.
Kristen Guichard, yes.
Eric Johnson.
Eric Johnson, yes.
Darlene Nguyen.
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
Melissa Tantakis.
Melissa Tantakis, yes.
Rachel Benson.
Rachel Benson, yes.
And Steve Olenoff.
Steve Olenoff, yes.
With that, this motion carries. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone. And Tom Bent, do you have a question, or were you not recorded?
No, I was, just real quickly, not that the MOU committee's work is completed yet, it is not. But I just wanted to thank all the committee members, the RTAs, and all the staff for all the hard work that they've done up to this point. And I appreciate all the work that's been done, and very happy that this vote has gone through. So thank you.
Absolutely. And great job to you in shepherding that process. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 12, sustainability and decarbonization in the freight and logistics sector in the North Suffolk area. And I'll pass it over to Shrivanti and Erin McGuire, MPO staff.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I believe it is still morning. My name is Erin McGuire. I am a transportation planner on staff at the Boston Region MPO, and I'm here today with my colleague Shrivanti Gopalan Narayan, and we will be presenting the findings from the Sustainability and Decarbonization in the Freight and Logistics Sector in the North Suffolk Area discrete study. This study was originally proposed by the City of Chelsea. Early in the development of this project scope, we identified that several of the challenges that were experienced by Chelsea were also relevant to nearby municipalities. As a result, the scope was expanded to include Revere, Winthrop, East Boston, and Everett south of Route 16. Major roadways that are located within the study area include routes 1A, 16, and 99, interstates 93 and 90, and the critical urban freight corridors of Marginal Street, Chelsea Street, Eastern Avenue, Beecham Street, 2nd Street, Broadway, and the Coughlin Bypass Road. There is a rail yard in service in Everett near the Mystic Mall, and there are also 3 designated port areas in the study area, being Chelsea Creek, Boston Harbor, and the Mystic River, which will be shown in the next slide. Approximately 158,000 people reside in the study area, of whom 60% identify as minorities and 30% have limited English proficiency. For this study, we are defining freight as the transportation of bulk goods by truck, air, sea, or train, along with the facilities that these vehicles operate out of. The airport is a major economic engine for the New England region and located within the study area. The goods that are transported through the airport are often time sensitive, which makes freight trucks the optimal vehicle to transport the goods with. The study area includes critical urban freight corridors, which are identified by MPOs in the state, as well as designated port areas identified by the National Coastal Zone Management Program. There is a wide variety of product types that are being transported throughout the area, which range from wholesale scrap metal, delivery services, to refrigerated produce and food distribution. There's approximately 18,000 freight trips that are generated daily in this study area to serve local and regional markets. Different types of light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles are best suited for different legs of a freight journey. For example, step vans are classified as medium-duty vehicles and are well-suited for deliveries to retail and direct-to-consumer trips. For long-haul trips, the majority of freight activity is conducted through heavy-duty vehicles. As of 2019, 2.5% of all freight trips in Massachusetts were by rail. All this to say, different strategies must be considered for different characteristics of freight transportation modes. For this study, MPO staff engaged a variety of stakeholders to obtain input on current challenges in the area, along with potential decarbonization strategies that could be further explored. We met with municipalities, community-based organizations, and industry actors. The graphic on this slide will summarize the key themes that came up during these conversations, along with overlapping priorities between the various actors. Firstly, each stakeholder expressed concerns around climate change, coastal flooding, and air quality. Both municipalities and community-based organizations shared concerns around extreme temperatures, the safety of vulnerable roadway users, along with air and noise pollution. Conversations with municipalities and industry actors discussed the impact that decarbonization strategies may have on workforces and opportunities to support green jobs. While both of these entities are interested in making meaningful investments to support decarbonization, Industry actors directly expressed concern about the present cost of fleet electrification and noted that this is also a significant challenge with municipal and other public fleets. There were three main ongoing challenges in the area that emerged from our engagement activities, these being roadway conditions, noise and air pollution, and coastal flooding. We will expand on those in the next few slides. The first major challenge that we identified is related to roadway condition, congestion, and safety. Routes 1, 1A, and 16 experience frequent congestion where the traffic consists of freight trucks, delivery vehicles, as well as local and through traffic. This contributes to bottlenecks, air and noise pollution, road deterioration, and vehicular idling. As a result of this, both cars and trucks take alternative routes through local and residential roads to bypass congested areas. This not only deteriorates local road conditions, but can also cause safety concerns for people walking, biking, and other vulnerable roadway users in the area. Moreover, limited transit options in the area force residents to drive or undertake challenging transit trips. The second major challenge that the area experiences is related to air quality, noise pollution, and extreme temperatures. The study area is densely populated and contains major clusters of environmental justice communities. Residents are disproportionately vulnerable to extreme heat due to the urban heat island effect and are exposed to emissions from roadways and the presence of industrial activities, which leads to public health concerns, such as an increased prevalence of asthma. As advocates have requested limiting the expansion of these industrial sites in the area. The final major challenge that we heard about is coastal flooding. Due to climate change, many of the freight and logistics hubs in the area are at risk of experiencing coastal flooding. However, businesses expressed a desire to remain in this location due to the proximity to the airport and other facilities, along with the market at large. So actions must be taken to mitigate the impacts of extreme weather events. Many of the municipalities that we talked to have received municipal vulnerability preparedness program planning grants and are taking initial steps towards implementing action-oriented resilience plans. I am now going to hand it off to my colleague Shrivanti, who will walk you through the remainder of our presentation today.
Thank you so much, Erin. Hi, everyone. My name is Shrivanti Gopalan Narayanan, and I'm the Freight Planning Program Manager at the Boston Region MPO. In addition to the ongoing challenges that Erin discussed, we also identified several decarbonization strategies based on our literature review and stakeholder engagement. The four key focus areas are electrification and alternative fuels, air quality reporting, mode shift, and coordination. Next slide, please. In Massachusetts, like nationwide, transportation is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, and most of those emissions from the transportation sector come from passenger and light-duty vehicles. The Commonwealth has a goal for net zero emissions by 2050. Fleet electrification was the most commonly proposed strategy to accelerate decarbonization and to improve sustainability. However, several barriers were noted, such as high upfront cost, nascent technology, grid capacity, and vendor timelines. Many of our interviewees emphasized that fleet electrification is likely to be a long and complex process and may not address concerns associated with traffic, noise, or roadway condition. Instead of putting all our eggs in the electrification basket, alternative fuels such as compressed natural gas, biodiesel, and hydrogen fuel cells can be explored and used. Next slide, please. Some of our stakeholders expressed an interest in having more specific local air quality data reporting to enable the identification of point sources of particulate matter. This information can be helpful to prioritize investments and develop regulations that could include emissions gap, anti-idling enforcement, and low or no emission zones. Similarly, there is an interest in understanding the origins and destinations of truck traffic and the resulting impact of truck traffic flows on air quality. Next slide, please. There is an ample evidence and widespread agreement that mode shift has several benefits such as lower congestion and pollution, improved safety, and better public health. Providing necessary infrastructure will encourage mode shift for last mile deliveries. Cargo electric bikes offer a promising alternative to step vans for local freight deliveries. This could potentially reduce the number of commercial vehicles parked in bike lanes, which is a safety concern that the MPO staff are currently studying through a separate discrete study. Stakeholders also encouraged us to facilitate intermodal freight connections by thinking outside the truck. Infrastructure to facilitate connections between truck, rail, maritime freight is necessary to support this mode shift, as the closest intermodal rail facilities are in Worcester and Ayer. Everett has some existing rail infrastructure, which needs to be preserved as it provides a unique opportunity to investigate shifting commodity and wholesale freight activity from trucks to rail. Mode shift to rail freight would also reduce the number of large freight vehicles on our roadways. Next slide, please. Owing to the widespread nature of the freight sector, there is a need for increased coordination among local, regional, state, and national levels. Transportation and land use are closely connected and significantly impact one another. There is a possibility of a transportation and land use mismatch when freight patterns and zoning are not integrated in the planning and decision-making process. Any intensive regulations specific to the study area might have an impact on the future location or relocation of businesses in the study area, which may consequently impact job prospects. Next slide, please. Based on our findings from the study, we suggest two categories of next steps. The first relates to follow-up studies that focus on specific promising ideas that emerged through the study, some of which we are already planning on pursuing in the next fiscal year. The second category relates to regional efforts. One potential follow-up study would include the analysis of regional freight patterns to gain deeper insights on vehicle emissions. Another study could explore potential locations for charging infrastructure, which is being considered by MAPC, coordinating with the work of the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Coordinating Council. Finally, we recommend a study that could focus on assessing the feasibility of cargo e-bike deliveries in the study area through a pilot program aimed at establishing a local delivery hub. On April 11th, the Unified Planning Work Program Committee, UPWP Committee, voted to recommend a discrete study on this topic to be undertaken in fiscal year 2025. In addition to these efforts, grants and funding opportunities are critical for stakeholders to advance freight decarbonization projects, provide improved infrastructure, and stimulate economic development. Various funding programs relevant to the freight and sustainability sector, both at state and federal level, such as Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity RAISE grant, Massachusetts Electric Vehicle Incentive Program, Mass EVIP grant, Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation SMART grant, and the Industrial Rail Access Program, IRAP, are ripe for further exploration. Next slide, please. We advocate for broader regional efforts that build an interdisciplinary coalition of stakeholders to collaboratively pursue decarbonization strategies, such as a regional decarbonization action plan. We also encourage setting regional greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets and working collectively towards achieving them. Further exploration of a multimodal approach by combining the movement of freight across ship, rail, and truck transport is an important regional effort. Finally, we want to emphasize the necessity of continuing public engagement efforts to create awareness and educate the public about decarbonization strategies. Next slide, please. This study would not have been possible without the help of several MPO staff members, especially Stella Jardin and Sean Roque from our communications and engagement team, Alison Felix and Travis Pollock from MAPC, and the numerous stakeholders who share their valuable time and thoughts with us. Thank you so much for your attention. We will now open the floor for any questions or comments that you may have.
Great, thank you both, Erin and Shivanti. Are there any questions or comments, discussion about this presentation? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Oh, Genro, there you go.
Yeah, I guess just starting off at work, I found the report very informative and balanced. Particularly appreciated the emphasis on not just kind of putting all our eggs in one basket in terms of electrifying vehicles. And I did want to, I guess, just a few short notes. One, I'll put a link into the chat. We're having an open house this evening for the e-cargo bike delivery pilot that my colleague Harper has been working on. So everyone invited to join that. And I know she wishes she could be here. Yeah, appreciates having collaborated with you on this. Couple other notes. We're hosting our annual Bike to Work Day, and my colleague Kim Foltz is actually leading a convoy that she does every year from East Boston to Boston City Hall along one of our freight corridors on Chelsea and Everett. So I'll also put a link in the chat if anyone would like to experience being on one of those corridors on a bicycle. Kim does a great job leading it. So, safe as you can be in that area. And then one other quick note, just for awareness, that the City of Boston has applied for a Safe Streets for All, planning a demonstration grant for some transit and also active transportation improvements in some Boston streets that are part of this planning area as well. I'll share a link to some more information on that as well. So thank you again, and I'm excited to see this work continue.
Great, thank you, Jen. Jay Monty.
Yeah, well, Erin and Shivanti, thank you for putting this. I know we talked a few months ago, and it's happy to give our input from Everett on this. We're obviously in the dead center of this along with Chelsea, and feel the impacts of freight, for our residents daily. And we also, given the development pressures here, we have a lot of friction between the desire for redevelopment, the need to preserve jobs and freight access. But of course, air quality and the environment are part of that as well. So again, just thank you for pulling this together. I know there's a lot more work to do and a lot more work here in Everett to do. So appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Jay. Sandy Johnston.
Yeah, thanks. Again, very happy to see the completion of this work, which I helped to kick off when I was the MPO's freight planner. Very happy to see the emphasis on kind of mode shift and again, not putting all of our eggs in one basket, as Jen said. I think it's a very responsible way to do this work. In line with the MPO's strategic goals around mode shift, I want to put in a plug for thinking about the future of this work, also in terms of the access of workers in the freight industry and logistics industries and in industrial activities to their jobs. And I think one of the pieces of context around this work that I would like for staff to consider and other folks thinking about this is that we're seeing a real trend of industrial jobs and logistics jobs moving kind of out of the inner core area, out to 128 or the 495 belt. And that's really accelerated over the past 20, 30 years, I think. And what it means is that many of those workers, many of whom still live in the inner core, now really have to drive to work. And so the land use considerations and obviously the ability of those folks to use transit or walking or biking to get to their jobs instead of having to drive are something I think we should be thinking about real carefully with our kind of long range planning and thinking about land use and access to these jobs. Thank you.
Those are really good points, Sandy. Thank you. Len Diggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and yes, thank you for the great study, and I'm glad you got this out in time for us to consider. Take into account when we're considering the next increased studies before the next WP, and I will be asking you to come to an advisory council meeting to go over this again. I mean, it's kind of becoming our standard practice, so that's why I don't have any questions for now, except for one, and that is, did I hear you say think outside the truck? Cervantes.
Yes, you did.
Excellent, nicely done. Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you, Len. Okay.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just add something
Sure,
real quick for
absolutely.
Len? Len, thank you so much for inviting us for the Art Tech meeting. We would be happy to meet with you and discuss this further. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, all. Good work, folks, on this. Very happy to see this presented today. So let's move to Beyond Mobility. Derek Cravat.
Great, thank you, Eric. I'm excited to be here today to present on Beyond Mobility. Okay, great, the slides are there. So yeah, so this is a really important plan for us at MassDOT. This is a strategic plan, a statewide long-range transportation plan that we've been developing for the past 2 years now. So excited to get to share this here today. You can go to the next slide. Just for some quick background, we are required by federal regulation to develop a statewide long-range transportation plan on a regular basis. Since we formed as a statewide transportation agency in 2009, we've actually only had one long-range transportation plan before, and that was We Move Massachusetts back in 2014. So we're not required to update these on a regular cadence, the same way MPOs have to update LRTPs every 4 years. So it's been about 10 years since we've had an updated statewide long-range transportation plan. So we felt like we were at a point where we needed to update this. We needed to update the strategic direction and framework for MassDOT and the future of transportation at the state level. So that's what Beyond Mobility represents. The name of the plan, which we get a lot of questions about, has to do with kind of looking at transportation for its sort of being the primary purpose of transportation, of connecting people to opportunities and really making it about access and centering people at the heart of the framework, right? I think traditional transportation planning tends to focus on mobility and level of service and things like that. Sometimes, we hear mobility for the sake of mobility, right? But there's a lot of interesting ideas and research out there that really looks to make it more about access. And I know this MPO has done a lot of great work on that front as well. So that's really what the title of the plan is meant to capture. The plan is out for comment right now. The slide is a little out of date just because we did actually extend the comment period as of 2 days ago. Now it's open till May 31st. We got some requests to extend that, just given that it is a relatively long document that is posted online. It's about 167 pages, but there is also an executive summary and a number of other materials posted to the website. So you can go to the next slide. I wanted to just put it in context as well that this plan is part of a larger initiative at MassDOT called MassDOT at 15. So I mentioned we formed in 2009 as a unified agency. So we're turning 15 years old this year, and to commemorate that, our leadership is kind of rolling out three kind of related initiatives, one of which is Beyond Mobility. This will really define kind of what MassDOT does, the values of the agency, are a number of action items that will sort of advance the vision for the future of transportation. The strategic business plan will really define kind of workforce needs to implement that vision and kind of be the who aspect of this MassDOT at 15 initiative. And you can go to the next slide. And the kind of final leg of this MassDOT at 15 framework is the Transportation Funding Task Force, which I'm sure folks have heard of. And this is something the governor has assembled and that our secretary is the chair of. And this group will be meeting monthly over the course of the year and providing recommendations to the governor on how to finance transportation. So kind of taken together, Beyond Mobility will be the vision for the future. The business plan will be kind of the staffing needs, and then the funding task force will really define, really focus on like resources available and financial planning aspects to implement the vision. You go to the next slide. I wanted to spend a slide here just to make sure it was clear that Beyond Mobility is a vision at the state level, but we're of course in very close collaboration with all of our regional partners, municipal partners as well. This diagram here is pulled from a really great federal highway training that talks about sort of the relationship between strategic planning, programming, and then sort of the evaluation of those programs. So we're kind of at that middle top box there where we're defining goals and objectives, performance measures, strategic planning. And then of course, when it comes to actually implementing that, we have to work with you all and our, of course, state agency partners as well, to really make sure, through the MPO process, everything kind of works together when it comes to actually making these things real. So we're just kind of setting a tone, defining a strategic planning framework, and then working with you all to implement that. And this plan will also serve to restructure our capital investment plan, priorities, as well as a number of other ongoing processes we have at MassDOT. So again, it'll serve as a foundation for a lot of that. We go to the next slide. So for the past 18 months, we've been doing really extensive public engagement. The plan is really based on sort of the needs of the public in Massachusetts when it comes to transportation. So, right, we wanted everything in this plan to be based on what people were experiencing and be responsive to problems that we know are out in the state. We did not want to have a list of actions or solutions in search of problems, right? We really wanted this to be rooted in people's everyday needs and visions for the future. So we did a ton of public engagement. We got over 5,000 unique responses through a combination of our surveys, focus groups, some of which were held with multilingual facilitators to make sure we were capturing perspectives from people who speak English as a second language or don't speak English at all. And we met people where they were to do these pop-up kind of events like you see on the screen there. So we feel like the plan is very much informed by people's experiences. We also worked closely with other MassDOT staff and MBTA staff. Shout out to Sandy, Laura, and Lindsay and their team to really were critical in developing this plan and helping us to make sure everything was consistent with MBTA strategic planning and ongoing work there. So certainly worked with our agency partners and others on the plan as well. You can go to the next slide. So just to summarize some quick public engagement highlights, some of the things we heard, which probably won't come as too much of a surprise, but we heard a lot about, overwhelmingly people's desire to get around without needing a car. And people really recognize the importance of the transportation system. Again, the spirit of the plan being about accessing opportunity, whether that's a doctor's appointment, jobs, et cetera, right? People don't view the system as just a system of infrastructure. It's really about accessing different places people need and want to go. We got a lot of responses about the importance of kind of bicycle pedestrian infrastructure and the safety of that, the importance of things like separated and protected bicycle lanes being really critical for, inducing, mode shift from cars to bicycling or walking, to have a safer sidewalk network or more complete sidewalk network in a lot of places. Interest in transit, improved bicycle and pedestrian connections to transit, and wayfinding as an important topic, especially again for people who do not speak English as a first language or at all. And then more frequent bus and commuter rail service really emerged as an important area, and passenger rail options, and then electric vehicle charging as well. I'd also put into that last point, especially from folks in Western Massachusetts, really priority areas that emerged. Go to the next slide. So we took all of this public engagement feedback. Again, that was just a snapshot, but we heard over 5,000 pieces of feedback. And then we did our own internal analyses, and we feel that, the issues that we heard about and the vision for the future kind of was represented through these 6 priority areas, those being safety, reliability, which refers to travel time reliability or being able to predict how long it will take you to travel, clean transportation, destination connectivity, resiliency, and travel experience, and then We're considering social and geographic equity and financial and staffing resources as cross-cutting themes that are really part of all 6 of these priority areas, right? We really can't talk about one without accounting for equity and then the ability to actually implement changes through, financial resources and our staffing needs. So these are sort of serve as the backbone of the plan, and the plan is structured by these 6 priority areas. Each one of them in the plan has with it a vision statement, a set of value statements, problem statements and key facts, and then a series of action items associated with each. And the final plan has over 100 action items across all 6 of these areas that really define what MassDOT will be doing to advance our goals and address the problems that we heard through this planning process. Next slide. The next few slides just describe a problem statement and an action item for each of the 6 priority areas, just to give you a flavor of what's in the plan. Again, there are over 100 of these action items, but I just wanted to highlight some here just so you can see what some of them are saying and how we're going about kind of implementing what we heard. So for safety, our problem statement is that 142 of our top 200 pedestrian crash cluster locations in Massachusetts are in environmental justice communities, right? This is a huge statewide problem we're aware of, both through analyses we've done, through the data we have, through our impact portal and elsewhere, but also through our public engagement. We heard a lot of feedback on this topic and the lack of kind of roadway safety, especially in gateway cities across the state. So in response to this, we're proposing sort of a newer program in our capital investment plan and a bench of projects to be developed in coordination with our municipal partners that would really focus safety projects in these environmental justice communities and kind of formalize a more dedicated capital plan program to these investments. Right now, we just have kind of a safety improvements program in our capital plan, but we're looking to make that really focused again on areas in our gateway cities that have a disproportionately high number of crashes. Next slide. In the area of reliability, we looked at the planning time index, which compares kind of travel times at peak periods versus kind of free flow periods, and quantified here the problem statement that people have to plan up to 8 times longer than free flow conditions during sort of those peak period times. So I think there's a sense in Massachusetts right now that we're certainly at a crisis point when it comes to reliability, whether that's through congestion or delays on transit or speed restrictions, et cetera. And so we heard a lot on this topic, and some of our action items here that we're looking to advance include improved coordination between our highway division, regional transit partners, and the MBTA to really look at where we can invest in transit priority on roadways and make sure we're dedicating sufficient resources to that. We know, again, through great comments from the MBTA, there's a lot of work happening on bus priority, the Vision and Toolkit initiative there to really define kind of transit priority needs on roadways. And so kind of working in tandem with that to make sure we're also developing projects on the highway side and with municipalities to advance that goal. We're also calling for the study of congestion pricing in Massachusetts. This is something the task force is also looking into, but we're calling attention to that again to understand what all the options are at our disposal when it comes to addressing this issue of travel time reliability. So that's something we're calling for in the plan. You can go to the next slide. In the area of clean transportation, the problem statement we're highlighting is that transportation is the, of course, largest contributor of carbon emissions in Massachusetts, and that these emissions are concentrated more heavily in environmental justice communities. So there's already been a ton of work done on this area through the Clean Energy and Climate Plan. In Massachusetts, there's a new Climate Chiefs report from Climate Chief Melissa Hoffer at the state level. And so there's been a lot of work setting targets when it comes to things like electrification. So we're not kind of reinventing the wheel on any of those existing targets. We're kind of restating a lot of that here. But what we are saying in the plan is that we're acknowledging in our values section that to achieve our climate goals, we need to be thinking beyond electrification and really toward kind of getting people out of single occupancy vehicles and into transit or walking and biking, right? This is a holistic approach that we need to be taking to achieve climate goals. So in the spirit of that, we're calling for a geospatial analysis that will look at where there might be potential opportunities to kind of reform land use and zoning and better coordinate housing and transportation, because we all know, right, transportation is not the only way to get people out of cars, right? We also need to think about this in relation to land use, and Shravanti and Aaron touched on that in the decarbonization study, right? There's so much overlap between transportation and land use, and we need to be thinking about that when we're planning the future system. So really focusing attention on that and studying that issue to understand where we might be able to make development and housing more transit oriented in the future. So calling for a study on that. Next slide. In the area, I think this is on destination connectivity. We studied through our needs assessment that environmental justice communities actually have fewer existing planned bicycle and pedestrian facilities than other communities. Even though we know that these same areas have the most potential for everyday kind of walking and biking according to our MassDOT bike and pedestrian plans. So again, similar to what we're calling for in the safety section, we want to create a program in our capital plan to really fund projects that promote multimodal access to transit, starting with potentially projects on state-owned roadways that we know contain MBTA or RTA stops. We also have an ongoing mapping effort at MassDOT called the Next Gen Bike and Pedestrian Vision Initiative, which will look at gaps in the statewide bike and pedestrian bicycle facility network and sidewalk gaps statewide. So kind of looking to fill those in and build out a stronger bench of projects in that area. And again, dedicate a capital plan program for that purpose. Right now, we don't have a program that is exclusively devoted to this, even though we all know this is a big problem and something we need to be addressing. Next slide. On resiliency, we know there's, of course, significant infrastructure exposed to natural hazards. We quantify in the plan what we know so far when it comes to infrastructure at risk to flooding and sea level rise at various levels of flooding, as well as transit stations and stops, again, building on a lot of the work that the MBTA has already done on vulnerability assessments, et cetera. So there's through Resilient Mass, there's a lot of action items for MassDOT and the MBTA already in the area of resiliency that we're actively working on. Something new that we're calling for, it's on this slide here, is just looking at, again, kind of interagency collaboration, working with Energy and Environmental Affairs. They of course run the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, which is a competitive program to provide municipalities funding for resiliency improvements, many of which are focused on transportation, but that's of course a very competitive program. We do have funding resources at MassDOT devoted to resiliency. So, where are there opportunities to collaborate with them on, potentially projects that are unfunded through their programs, but that we may be able to work with municipalities to advance and maybe use MassDOT funding to fund. So that's one thing we're calling for in the planning, and just looking at improved collaboration across agencies on resiliency. And the next slide, which I think is the last slide here, this is just the last priority area on travel experience. So this refers to kind of just general ease of using the system and comfort of using the system. The highlighted problem here is that we heard a ton of public feedback, particularly from people with disabilities, people not speaking English as a first language, reporting a need for improved wayfinding signage. Again, coming back to that point from the beginning, we're calling for an action item here for a follow-on study that will inventory bus stops and transit stations that lack sufficient wayfinding signage, especially in areas where we know there's probably a need for greater translation services. So, working with our transit agency partners on that to advance the study. Next slide. Yeah, that's the last slide. I just want to again say that the plan is out for public comment through May 31st. I can certainly pop a link in the chat for the plan website, which has the plan documents, the executive summary, and a form that you can use to provide any public comments. So appreciate the time here, and I'm happy to take any questions. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Are there any questions for Derek on the Beyond Mobility plan? Not seeing any. Thank you, Derek, for this overview.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I think the last thing on the agenda our members items. That's right. Are there any members items today? I'm not seeing any members items. So that is everything on the agenda. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Higgins moves to adjourn.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Rachel Benson, second.
Hey, thank you everyone for a great meeting today. A lot of good content. Really appreciate everyone's time. With a motion and second, without objection, we are adjourned today. Have a great weekend.
Good meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.